Okay guys, so let's create a Python project from scratch. So the very first thing we need to do when creating a new project, and this goes for generally any HTML web project, anything like that. I keep all my projects I've got a general code folder, and these are all my web projects and Python projects, and they're all together in the same folder. And then I create a new Python project. So that's the first thing. And then I love to use the command line. So once I've got my new Python project folder created, then I go through to my command line, and I have Windows subsystem for Linux installed on my Windows 11 environment. So it's WSL2, and highly recommended. What I used to do was to have a dual boot setup where I'd have to reboot, restart the computer if I wanted to go back to Windows or go back to Linux. But this way, I've got it all in the same place, so I don't need to reboot, and I can just access it immediately. So just to show you like how it's set up on the network. So I've got my computer, the network, and then there's a whole Linux subsystem set up separately. So it's really cool, really useful, definitely worth having a go. So now I'm on my command line. I'm going to cd, which is change directory, cd code, and then I'm going to cd into my new Python project. So what did I call it? Let me just check. So I'm doing a list of all and new Python project. Okay, so cd new, and you can press tab, by the way, to finish your sentences for you, so you don't have to type everything out. So cd change directory to new Python project. All right, so we can clear that. Sorry, clear that, and then I can open up my Visual Studio Code straight from here. And the way I do that is just typing in code space dot, and a dot means open it in this directory. Great. All right, so there's my VS Code, and there are currently no files or folders in here. So the first thing that I can do is open up my integrated terminal from inside this directory location, and you can see what I've got here is the URL where I'm at, the file path, the directory path. So the very first thing that we need to do when we create a new Python project is to create a virtual environment. A virtual environment is definitely in line with best practices, and it means that any libraries that you installed are contained within the project that you are currently working on. So the command to create that virtual environment is your Python command, whatever it is. If you're on Windows, I think it's just Python. On Mac terminal, it's also Python 3, I think, but just, yeah, check what version yours is. Well, not what version, but what the syntax is. Okay, so Python 3, and then there's an argument -m, and then the command to create the virtual environment is venv, right? And then the next piece of information I need to give it is what I want to call my virtual environment folder. So we start with a dot, which makes it a hidden directory, and we can just call it my env. Press enter, and then what we see on the left hand side there is it automatically creates a folder for us, and this is where it installs or stores the libraries and the configuration for our project. Okay, so but then it's not actually activated. So what we need to do in order to activate it now is by pressing source or typing out source, and then the path to the activate program inside our virtual environment. So that path starts with our my env, or the name of the virtual environment directory, /bin /activate, and enter. And now it's activated my virtual environment. How do I know it's activated it? Because I can see on the left hand side here of my command line, it's now saying in round brackets my env. So it's saying that this is now active. All right, that's great. So now the next step that we need to do is to create a program file, right? So generally we always, what we call the main program file is app.py, and this is where we run our main code. So just to check that it's all good and working, and then we can save that. And then how do we run our program? Well, we type in python 3 app.py, and there it does output what we told it to do. Okay, so what we want to do as well when you are setting up in terms of best practices is you do want to have a separation of concerns. So it's a good thing to separate your function definitions outside of your main program file. So let's create another file, another Python file called functions, and then what we do is we import functions into app. So let's create a say, just as an example, say hello, and then we can print. All right. Okay. So now, in order for our app.py to have access to this function, we need to be able to, we need to tell it where to find it, what to include. So let's say import functions as func. Let's just say as func, and the reason we do that is so that it's just a bit shortened, so that whenever we use it in our program, we don't have to always write functions dot. We just write func dot. So func dot say hello. There we go, and then we put our open and close brackets. Control S. So you can see there's no definition of what this says, of what this does in our main program file. We've outsourced that to our functions.py. Okay, so let's run it again. And it does the same thing. Yeah. So that's the basics of step by step, the best way to start a brand new Python project. And by the way, when you come back to this project, you don't need to create another virtual environment. If your virtual environment's there, you don't need to create it. What you will need to do every time, if it's not activated, is just to do to activate it. So your source and then the path to your activate command. Cool, guys. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.